Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, coming to you from some basement in a labyrinth of wherever, just like Roger Goodell, who was sitting there looking like Fred Rogers, ready to fall asleep in his recliner or his lazy boy at the end of the draft here, just like we are, too. Not only am I joined by one brother from another mother, I have both of my brothers from other mothers with me. First, being rejoined by the one host who doesn't like toasts, Mr. Brian E. Roach. Brian, hey man, it's been forever. I almost forgot who you were.
Well, I'm hurt and just completely devastated to hear that. And I understand, though. It's good to be back.
Hey, and you know what? Since we're the least prepared broadcast team in any type of sports media, we had to bring a guy who kind of knows his stuff. Well, along with us, as usual, the guy whose back hurts, his shoulders hurt from carrying our dead weight around. We like to call him the professor of football, Zach Meckler. What's going on, Zach?
You know, I can sympathize with Roger Goodell right now. But towards the end of that draft, I was starting to sink into my chair a little bit as well. So I can kind of sympathize with him for the first time in my life and understand where he's coming from.
Hey, a couple attaboys, though. We got the draft hat thing right, at least for, like, those first guys, Tua and Joe Burrows and that. They had, like, the whole assortment of New Era hats. Almost seemed like they had one for, like, mom and dad or whoever was there, too. So we got that right. We did a little bit of bingo with Christina Rivers. She made a bingo card of what we could see. I didn't actually see how many of them we hit, but quite a few of them, like Dave Gettleman, like, wearing a mask, like, even though he was by himself and crazy crap like that. But we didn't get to talk about the first day of the draft. Very uncharacteristic for us because for the first time in, I don't know, since the 60s, I don't know, Brian, you would know, you were around back then. The Steelers...
I was, as a matter of fact, yes.
The Steelers didn't have a first round draft pick. So we had to wait until pick 49 here, which was, it was giving us all anxiety. There were all guys we liked going into day two, but from 32 to 49, things happened. And we had to wait. And I guess first things first, we'll talk about the Steelers guys, because that's what everybody wants to hear about, right? We don't want to hear about Joe Burrow going to the Bengals or, any of that nonsense. But I guess right before we get to all of that, what would you say so far has been the biggest surprise in this draft? You know what? I'll defer to Zach since he's the guru here. Maybe he could steal the low-hanging fruit from us, Brian.
Sure. Honestly, the one thing that kind of surprised me was Jalen Hurts ending up with the Eagles. I know. Sure. There's the whole shtick with Carson Wentz's health, and after Nick Foles left, there was kind of lacking of depth there. But second round pick for a guy who is going to be your backup, who you just made one of the most expensive quarterbacks in the NFL, just didn't really make sense to me when they really needed to add more weaponry in that offense because of all the injuries they have had. I'm all for the insurance. I'm all for getting a guy there to back up Carson Wentz. I just, no knock on Jalen Hurts, but people were talking about him coming to Pittsburgh. At least Ben Roethlisberger's in the twilight of his career. Carson Wentz is right in the beginning of it, as far as I'm concerned. And as long as he stays healthy, he's an MVP caliber quarterback. So I was very surprised to see that kind of happen that way. Of all the teams rumored to be after Jalen Hurts, I did not expect the Eagles to be the one that would actually pull the trigger on him. So if I had to pick one thing that stood out to me, that was the one that kind of took me the most off guard and kind of left me sitting back, scratching my head, wondering why.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. What did you think, Brian?
Well, mine is a quarterback thing too, but it happened yesterday. And that's the Packers trading up to take Jordan Love. And to me, that was surprising, even though of course the media guys got a lot of play out of it because they got to say stuff like, this is the exact same age Brett Favre was when they drafted Aaron Rodgers. And, it felt very scripted, but it still was a surprise. For a team like the Packers who have a franchise quarterback that, while I think is overrated, everybody else is on his jock, as they say. I was a little bit shocked by that.
Yeah, I'm having a tough time to say a specific one because we're going to be talking a little bit about this, if not in this show, but we will definitely in the future if we don't get to it. I'm going to say Patrick Queen to the Ravens all the way down to 28. When he was still there on the board, I'm just like, oh, come on, man, really? You know what I mean? So it's like, did we really? Did the Ravens really need that pick? It's like, let's just keep reloading. I really hate their draft, and of course, Brian, we could sympathize with. As well, JK all day going there too.
Dead to me.
Definitely dead. He's not Ezekiel Elliott dead.
It's worse. This is worse.
Instead of
worse than Ezekiel Elliott.
Instead of 6 feet dead.
A different conference.
Yeah. Instead of a 6-foot hole, you dug it like about 16 feet.
Yeah. I don't even know who he is anymore.
Who?
Yes, exactly.
Man, I share the same initials with this guy too.
Yeah.
It's painful. I'm just like, really? And he was there, and I know a lot of people were griping and whatever. The Steelers have a lot more depth. They still have James Conner on his rookie contract. I mean, if Conner's healthy, we know that he's a Pro Bowl caliber back. We've seen it. I know it's a big if. We've talked about maybe a second-year leap for Benny Snell. A lot of people are on the Jalen Samuels sucks train for some reason, not realizing the role that he has is completely different from either of those two guys. So you have like 3 players. And don't forget, Jalen Samuels banged up the New England Patriots. Back when the Patriots were still kind of a good football team, we have no idea where they're going these days. I mean, Bill Belichick with his first pick just lets his dog sit in the chair. So,
yeah.
I mean, it was kind of cute and funny. You know, the pick's already in, but I like the tease. I keyed. But there's a lot of people griping at 49. I understand there's some names that were there. I know there was guys that Jalen Hurts was not a guy any of us wanted. All in favor? Aye. And, we talked about Dobbins. Jonathan Taylor was already gone. Antoine Winfield. We had some guys like that you were looking at, and some guys that fell into day 2, maybe like, let's say Xavier McKinney, for example, or Michael Pittman, or, guys like that. Oh, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a pretty, that was kind of a surprise at the very end of day 1, still around midnight or whatever, but you get over to, pick 49, and I was not upset with this at all. I was very happy. The pick is in. Wide receiver, Notre Dame, Chase Claypool. I'm going to ask what Yin's guys thought about that. Brian, I'll defer to Brian first because then Zach can get all the technical things because I know he's got a bunch of tape running through his mind right now.
I mean, here's the thing. You can't. You really can't be upset with the pick, right? Did I want JK? Of course I wanted JK. It would have warmed the cockles of my, scarlet and gray heart to have JK on the Steelers. But I can't argue with this pick. And I have actually, early on in some of my mocks, I had Chase Claypool as one of the guys that I liked. So I'm not at all upset with the pick. And, when you talk about a guy like this, the upsides could be huge. And I mean, the Steelers had trouble in the red zone. Even the year before when Ben was there, they had some troubles in the red zone. They've consistently had some issues there. This is a guy, when you pair him up with Ebron, who they signed in free agency, that could potentially give them, not potentially. He's going to give Ben a big, giant target. And it's a guy who does contested balls. I mean, I'll let Zach do all the analysis on it, but, you really can't argue with him. The Steelers have a knack for picking wide receivers, and apparently the second round is their go-to. So I'm not going to question Colbert about this, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to find a Claypool jersey once he picks a number, unless Zach Adonia tells me the number is stinky, and then I can't do it.
Well, he also breaks a lot of tackles too. So
yes, he does.
And we were talking about this, Professor. I think 83 may be available. I gotta look for sure. I'll verify this. I know a lot of people will be like, "Oh, that was Heath Miller's number." Well, the 80s don't Lynn Swann didn't get to keep his number. Stallworth didn't get to keep his number. Unretired. Hines Ward's still floating, but that I don't think that lasts forever. And even the great Rod Woodson eventually gave way to to Le'Veon Bell wearing 26. Just, there's a few of them like Terry Bradshaw's 12 that's not going anywhere and is safe. Yeah, there's no one with 83 at all. You got Gentry with 81, Amara Darboh with 82, and then Kevin Rader all the way over with 87 and Vance with 89. Geez, nobody's wearing the 80s. Everybody's in the teens or something right now. So it might be 83. The number, though, that stands out right now, 13 touchdowns last year and 27 broken tackles at Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, with the 83 thing, I mean, if everyone wants to complain about Heath Miller, that's his number. If we allow Kobe Hamilton to wear 83, I think we can allow the second-round draft pick to wear 83. I'm just going to no disrespect to Kobe Hamilton, but he's the highest drafted receiver since Santonio Holmes in 2006. That has to say something to where the Steelers value this guy. And I think the passing up of J.K. Dobbins, I think shows either A, they weren't as high on him as some of us may have been, or Jonathan Taylor, if they were going to go running back, was going to be their guy. And obviously the Colts snatched him up at 40. So it makes sense that they went wide receiver. I know Didi Kinkwambala had hinted that was the direction they were going to go. Looking to help Ben out. But I just think, people get so caught up with the guys that they mock and over and over and over again. Because when we get to a certain point, our mocks start to be consistently the same when we do these mock draft simulators. We look for the same guys every pick. We don't deviate from that. So we get so caught up with wanting to take the same guys. And Chase Claypool hasn't been a guy that's been frequently mocked to the Steelers because other than their interview with him at the Combine, there hasn't been a whole lot of interactions. But here's the thing. There hasn't been a chance for us to find out what these interactions were. We're never going to probably find out a whole lot where all the FaceTime and Zoom and Skype interviews were with the Steelers and these prospects. So a guy like Chase Claypool, who brings the size, he's 6'4", 238. A lot of his speed is more linear than it is agile. When you put him side by side with Deontay Johnson, you're not going to see the same type of route runner. That's not to say Chase Claypool's not a route runner, but he doesn't have the same type of nuanced feel to what he does as a shifty guy laterally, as you see guys like Deontay Johnson who put guys on skates and make them miss just with their footwork. But what he brings to you is a high motor guy, is a high football character. He's willing to do all that dirty work that would make Hines Ward and Juju Smith-Schuster blush as a blocker. He does all that gritty stuff that you want to have as a three-phase receiver, and I think that's really what brings that versatile aspect to his game. And you look at the fact the Steelers have struggled so much as a special teams unit. That's been one of their biggest weak spots over recent years. And, no knock on Danny Smith, but they haven't had good units. You lose guys like Tyler Medikevich. You cut Rosie Nix. You go out of your way now to sign a guy like Derek Watt. You still have to add some more bodies to that group. He's going to be a guy who's going to be a stud coverage unit guy. That was a big part of his role at Notre Dame. Even whenever he was the number one receiver, he was still contributing on their kickoff coverage, their punt coverage. He was getting down there. He was killing guys. And that's going to be a huge stick for him, especially early on, because he's not going to be starting this year. He may work himself into the rotation early on, but early on, he's going to be a special teams guy. He's going to be in certain packages in the red zone potentially, or when they go 4 wide or 5 wide. He's going to be in those capacities, but he's going to be behind Juju, Deontay Johnson, and James Washington starting on. And very well, he might end up being behind guys like Ryan Switzer and maybe even a Deon Cain type of deal as he gets his feet wet. So special teams are going to be where he gets his feet in the mud first, got to get himself acclimated to the system while working on some of those more nuanced things. But you can't deny the potential this guy has. I think he's a relatively high ceiling player. You don't see guys that big that can move that well or that long. He has a 40-inch vertical on top of already being 6'4". That straight line speed, the contested catches, that ability to high point balls. He does everything so well, and it's a very exciting pick. I liked it. Shout out to Zach Adonia, who's been, pumping the pedal on this guy for a while, but I think everything he does fits what the Steelers do from a competitive standpoint, from a vertical standpoint, size, fit, personality. I like the pick. It wasn't my first choice of picks, but I'm not going to sit here and complain about it, especially before we get a chance to see what he can do in this offense.
I was texting back and forth with my cousin. I think he was trying to troll me. He said, trade our pick for Fournette before 49. And I'm like, for what, a guy in the final year of his rookie deal who's missed a lot of games. I understand there was some Tom Coughlin stuff there too, but he's missed a lot of games too. You know what I mean? The guy's been banged up. And, what do you think of a guy that's trying to get out of a situation or has had problems with the organization? Maybe he's a great guy. They've already had stuff like that happen. They don't want any more noise. So, I was pretty blunt about this. I said, what the F are you smoking? And he says Hamler, and I said JK all day. I also said Winfield, and then I also said Claypool. And, he wanted Mims for speed. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Claypool's a 4.42 guy. This isn't okay. He's how much faster do you have to get to be fast? Especially you can't teach speed. You can't teach height. This is 6'4", 238. This is a guy that gets up 40.5 inches, Zach. You were a half inch off. The guy could jump even further. I know. I could barely jump over a stack of dimes, and you know what I mean? That's more than a stack of dimes for the extra whatever. So, this is a nice, big, fast target for Big Ben. A lot of people thought he was a very athletic guy. He's not a guy I think we talked about enough because honestly, I think we started to rule him out in our minds in the early part of the draft process, and here he is, the 11th guy that was taken, or was it 11? Yeah, there was maybe 11th or 12th wide receiver taken in this draft. And you start to think about, geez, they went so deep. But if anybody with a brain was paying attention tonight, there's a reason why all these the wide receivers went so fast and so many of them went is because it was a deep class and everybody wanted to make sure they got their guy. I mean, in my mock draft, I think I had Van Jefferson somewhere in the third or fourth round where he was showing up some of these different boards like Matt Miller and stuff like that. And he was gone tonight as well. So, or last night, whatever. I don't even know when it is right now. Of course, being in the self-isolation type deal doesn't help either. So it's Thursday, 8:00. When is that? Oh, is that today? You know what I mean? So you don't even know where you're at. But anyways, he doesn't need to be expected to play right away. This is also a little bit of an insurance policy. I know a lot of people are thinking, well, they have Juju. They have James Washington. They have Deontay Johnson. Okay, Deontay Johnson flashed, and he did a lot of great things. That was a rookie year. Let's see him do it again. Let's see if Juju comes back, nagging injuries, different quarterbacks he was playing with. Let's see how that works out. Let's see, he's entering his fourth and final year of his rookie deal too. We won't get into that tonight, but Zach, I know you don't feel he's going to be back. I feel he could be. Brian, I haven't talked to you enough about it. I don't know how you feel, but regardless, here's a guy that you add just in case. And a lot of people were talking the year before when the Steelers got rid of, sent Antonio Brown packing with that trade to the Raiders. How are you going to replace Antonio Brown? Well, now you're coming around to it. This is where I'm not saying he's Antonio Brown, but he's somebody who can make up for maybe some of that production down the line. If it's not necessarily immediate as a rookie, they're going to see, hey, is James Washington going to continue to trend upward? Is Deontay Johnson going to continue to trend upward? They're not taking any chances. This is the best player that was available maybe at that spot. Other than running back, because we felt the same way about running back. Is this guy, if we take a guy like Dobbins, is he going to have to sit behind Connor and Snell before he gets his shot at least a year, maybe more down the line, and what happens with that? So it's a very similar situation there. I don't want to necessarily call it a coin flip because I wanted to say that the running backs maybe were on a higher pedestal here. But again, Claypool was a genetic freak at the combine and just a guy I kind of wrote off as, well, he'll be gone before they even have a chance to sniff at him, and he fell right into the Steelers' lap, much like Juju Smith-Schuster did a few years ago. So I think that kind of, I don't know, any other comments on that, Zach or Brian?
Yeah, I'm sorry. You go. Professor, you go first. You go.
Yeah, I was going to say one more thing. People were criticizing the things that he can't do, and I'm going to say the same thing that I always say. It's easy to point out the negatives of what a guy can't do, but at this point, he is in Pittsburgh. You have to figure out what he can do. I compare it a lot to my criticisms and a lot of people's criticisms with DK Metcalf last year of a big guy who has a lot of linear speed, but was knocked heavily because of his lateral agility that he didn't really have. But here's the thing. You don't put these guys into positions where they're going to be exposed like that. You put them into positions where they can let their strengths flourish. We don't need him to be Antonio Brown or Deontay Johnson in terms of route running, shifting this lateral ability. You're going to have a guy who's a big target who can go down the field in a hurry. He could be a massive red zone threat and give you a high level of contested passes for receptions. That's what his strength's going to be early on when he learns the other nuances. use him as his strengths are. They're gonna put him in a position to be successful. If he's not a pure route runner like DJ is, you don't have to make him one. Let him do what he's going to have success with, and quit, nagging on all the negative things. There's no point in that anymore. Now look at what he can do and how he can help this offense.
Yeah, my take on this is going to be from the flip side of this, which is the problem with not drafting a running back, because at this point I don't know that they're going to any running back they're going to draft, if they did draft one later on in this process, isn't going to be a contributor. And Joe, you and I, we've definitely talked about that. Whether if they drafted a running back at 49, they would really be a contributor or not. And my take is, if Connor does get hurt, and I know that Colbert has said, oh, he's going to be healthy. We know he's going to be healthy. That's fine. But every season he starts out healthy and he gets hurt. When that happens, whoever you had drafted would have been a contributor, and that's the difference here. And one of the things I said would be that I wanted them to do is have somebody that absolutely will be a benefit towards getting them to that championship. And I'm not saying Claypool won't. I think he can as he grows into the position. And while I don't think he's going to get a ton of snaps early in the season, maybe by the end of the year, they find ways to use him in an effective way and do some interesting things with him. But that's the downside to me of not going at running back, is that I think that there was a bigger risk factor there that they might have a need than there is at wide receiver. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I don't know if a guy like Claypool comes along, or even a Dobbins, but now I don't know. Are you scratching your butt next year? But I have a little bit of a funny. You said a benefit to winning a championship. How about a Benny fit? Benny would fit right into there. Maybe. A lot of people were selling us on it. I know Ryan Lipper, real big, the big Kentucky guy in our group here at SCU. And you never know. You don't know. And, of course, he had a little bit of who didn't have an injury last year, seriously. So, it's just scary to think about what the Steelers have. Now, you look at the arms race here. You get the Browns, who try and keep adding guys to their secondary. Boy, is that patchwork, right? Grant Delpit, and they had Denzel Ward already. They went Greedy Williams last year. I forgot who else they signed. The Bengals were signing and have guys all over the place too. The Ravens already had a lot of guys in place prior heading into this offseason. And you add Claypool and you add Ebron already to Vance McDonald and Juju and James Washington, Deontay Johnson, creating a lot of mismatches. And whoever you hand the rock off to or you put in the backfield between Jalen Samuels and Benny Snell, I think you could figure it out. They usually only keep 3 running backs to begin with, so I'm not sure who I would have felt comfortable with saying goodbye to, and who really has a trade value there. Or do you want to trade somebody a final year of a contract for a guy that's oft injured? I don't see a whole lot for James Conner. People just tend to think you could play Madden GM, and even the video game would probably reject most of your trades that you would attempt with that based on that logic. So I suppose moving on, you got one more pick to get us all excited tonight. Had to wait all the way down to 102, and you saw a lot of guys go off the board. Lloyd Cushenberry, man, that breaks my heart. Got to go to the Denver Broncos, a team who I don't necessarily hate, and I have a buddy who's a big friend of mine. It's a big fan of the Broncos, and let me tell you, 2 wide receivers, that's pretty crazy too, as far as surprises. But geez, some of these teams really loading up. Raiders too, man. What, did they take 3? Yeah. Yeah. That's just telling you how many good receivers there are in this draft. We said it was deep. I don't know how much deeper it gets from here, though, going into day 3. So you don't want to wait too long. So you get to you're at this point here, and you're seeing a few names come off the boards, and you're like, oh man, this guy's gone. This guy's gone. It's starting to really nag you. We got one that's still surprising. Simpson from Clemson, right? He's still.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's still out there, and that was kind of surprising. Troutman, finally, everybody was banging their drum on him. Very end of the 3rd round, remember? There was 4 other tight ends that went, and some people were like, he could be the number 1. And even us, we were talking about Thaddeus Moss, and some of these guys are still floating around. The Steelers have 2 picks tomorrow. Not to get into in the 4th round, I should say. Not to get too far ahead on this, but, you're at the very bottom of round 3 here. You're getting into compensatory picks. You got one of the last 5 5 of the round at 102. And this is a guy that did kind of show up on the radar, right? We kind of had him linked. I think a few people had him in the mocks. I know I considered it. I just thought maybe they would go offense. Well, Zach, they surprised us. They didn't go offense. They went offense-defense, and Alex Highsmith goes there and fills a need outside linebacker where, we were kind of contemplating as far as the depth. I understand he comes from Charlotte, and a lot of people aren't probably familiar with Charlotte football, and that's because they just simply haven't existed for very long. Playing basically college varsity level 2013 FCS team for 2 years and gets in the Conference USA in 2015, 5 years that the program's there. So when you hear that the guy's the all-time leading sack leader for the team, I mean, it's still an accomplishment, and he's still, compiled and put up a lot of numbers, a high motor guy and things of that nature. But what did Tomlin say? We just had a quote from there. We have 3 Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks in the AFC North, and we have to have guys to hunt them, coming to us from Mike Tomlin via Mark Cabali at The Athletic. So I totally agree with Mike Tomlin here, and I'm not upset at all. As I said, I probably wasn't going to be upset with most or many of the picks in this draft, and in fact, I was kind of excited because this was at least somebody that, you got a big 350 board, Zach. I have like a 35 board. So this is one of the guys that was on my radar. I was excited to see it. And you know what? I'll defer to you again to hear your comments.
Yeah, it's. I think this pick makes sense. I know a lot of people have discounted edge, myself included, as a real primary need after Bud Dupree had the franchise tag placed on him, and then he ultimately signed it this week. And all signs looked to the Steelers wanting to sign Dupree long term. But even if they do sign him long term to a deal, and then they ultimately end up getting T.J. Watt to a long term deal when his contract's up, you had to improve your depth there. I mean, for the last couple seasons, we've been watching Anthony Chickalow be the number 3 edge defender on the team, and he seems to have regressed immensely leading up to the Steelers releasing him this year. And you still have no idea what you have with somebody like Tazar Skipper or Ola Adeniyi. So you still have to add bodies there, because if Watt or Dupree go down, you're left with 2 undrafted free agent guys that have very limited exposure in the NFL. And both of them could be very fine prospects. We have no idea, but you need to add bodies there, because you have no idea if Dupree is going to leave after this year, because you can't guarantee a contract will get done. So you have to add a body like Alex Highsmith, and I think he comes into a very good situation in Pittsburgh. I mentioned that last month whenever, it was starting to leak out more and more. The Steelers were having interest in him. We're planning on interviewing him via, FaceTime or Skype or whatever. It makes a lot of sense. When it comes to pass rushing toolbox, he has a very good skill set with that. A lot of guys like Dupree got knocked because of their underdeveloped pass rushing set. Well, that's not the issue for Highsmith. Highsmith's biggest issue is he just needs to add some size and strength and get acclimated to the speed of the NFL. Luckily, Charlotte, being a CUSA team, oftentimes would get the warm up games for a lot of these big SEC and ACC teams. So he has good tape against premier talent. It's not as if he's playing a cupcake schedule the entire time. So he's going up against SEC and ACC caliber offensive linemen to prove his worth. And he made a move this past season to be more of an edge rusher from a hand in the dirt type of lineman. You saw him kind of flourish, and I think that really helped him out there. I think he fits what the Steelers do. I think there were very few, in my opinion, edge rushers that truly fit the way the Steelers qualify their edge rushers. He's very quick. He's very agile. He knows how to use his strengths and advantages to his benefit. And I think realistically, he fits the situation to come in here, learn, be a special teams player early on, and hopefully get to a point where he could be a more heavy contributor as the time comes along and he gets more acclimated how things go along. I really like the pick. I think for him, like I said, it's less about how he is as a edge rusher and more how it is how he needs to get used to the whole NFL speed and strength. I think his guys are bigger, faster, and stronger here. Just getting used to that. If he can do that at a decent level, I think realistically that he can be a really nice piece for the Steelers.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. I think the biggest concerns are exactly what you said. He needs to add size. He needs to add strength and functional strength. Initially, he's going to be a guy that may have some pass rush moves, but he's not maybe going to have the junk in the trunk to effectively set an edge. But that all can be worked on. You can get stronger. That's the nice thing. Those are the kind of things that you can make yourself get stronger, right?
Those are the things you can teach.
Yeah, well, and it's just hard work, right? You pump some iron, as they say, as just get in there and start doing the squats and doing what you got to do, and you'll get stronger. So I like the pick. I'm not, I think when you're down there at that point, and we've said this many times in the draft podcast, you start to get deep into the third round, into the fourth and the fifth rounds. You're looking at developmental guys. These are not necessarily guys who are going to come in and make an immediate impact or be starters on your team. They're going to be guys that you need. They're going to be contributors because they're going to provide you with depth. They're going to be contributors on special teams, and hopefully you groom them into something that becomes more than that. And I think that I like the pick of Alex Highsmith because for very real reasons, I was just tired of seeing Anthony Chickillo.
I'm totally good with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's all that really needs to be said. They had to make some changes there, particularly with depth, and this is a pick where we mentioned before going to be special teams type play. They weren't even looking at Tazar Skipper as a special teams player last year. He didn't even play a special teams role until the final preseason game. So you just couldn't roll with what you had right there. And again, you got to get off that path and see where you're going to go. Plus, at Chickillo's contract, it made it real easy. I mean, even if they did like him, I think we saw the ceiling on him. Nothing against him at all. He was what he was. So here you go. You get a little bit of insurance here. Maybe somebody that you don't. It's the devil you know and the devil you don't. And which one do you want to go with? I don't know. You know what? It's still the devil either way, I guess. So there's the risk factor always. But hey, we're not talking about anybody. A lot of people aren't. Like I said, I mentioned Charlotte, and some people are probably going to be like, Charlotte, what the heck is that? That's like Division II football or something like that. Is this like Javon Hargrave, like South Carolina State? No, this is more like those guys they find in the MAC. That's where the Conference USA stuff is. I mean, geez, Tyler Matakevich came out of Temple, and I know he was a 7th round pick and maybe didn't light the world on fire, but it's where they find some of these guys and where they could find them to be, fit a certain role or be a contributor. And you know what, guys, considering it's a late night, do we really want to get into the AFC North? I think we're going to table that until we see the rest of their draft. But I think just a cursory thing overall, just real quick, we're peeved, me and Brian, about J.K. Dobbins, and Zach, you're peeved about T. Higgins going to the Bengals.
I don't want to talk about it.
Dead to you too.
They're dead to us now. They're just dead. They never existed.
Yeah.
Dead.
Yeah, and there's certain things you could ignore, like Devin Bush coming from that university up north, and there's certain things that you just can't let go, like Dobbins going to the Ravens, Higgins to the Bengals, and those drafts, hey, they're looking pretty solid so far. We're going to see where the Steelers are at. They have a total of 6 picks overall, 4 more coming up on day 3 of the NFL draft here, with 2 in the 4th round, 124 and 135. So hey, we won't have to sit around and watch Roger Goodell. I wonder if they built him like a set somewhere. I was wondering if that's like his real like basement, and it looked like there was like a recipe or cookbook. When he sat down and they repositioned the camera, I think I saw a cookbook on the shelf, and I just don't know if that's clever like set decoration or interior design, or if this is like legit like his place and they had to outfit it with a few extra, because he still had a tube TV in the basement or something collecting dust. I mean, you never know. And some of these like setups too, did you notice like Colbert, like Tomlin had his back turned to the TV. He's playing on his phone. I think he had like all these guys have Microsoft Surface tablets because it's a sponsor of the NFL overall, not just the draft. And that's basically all he had there. And Colbert, that's all he had in front of him. But like, I was laughing because Bruce Arians had like these giant like 32-inch screens, and it looked like it was put on this tiny little dining room or kitchen table. Like he doesn't have an actual desk or office at his house. And a lot of guys look like they have some offices, or they somehow go, maybe they're the only one in the team facility or something. But we see a few of these. Mike Zimmer had like the fireplace and like the dead animals like mounted
half
up.
An elk.
Yeah.
Dude had half an elk. I mean, it wasn't just the head. He cut an elk in half.
Body. Yeah.
and Sean McVay like looks like he lives in downtown LA, like in a high rise, the penthouse, looking out with all the windows, like he's Christian Grey or something. Well, you guys may not know that. My wife's made me watch the 50 Shades of Grey things, and the guy was a loaded billionaire who paid for sex. So, but anyways, I'm not saying that's Sean McVay, but he has maybe he has one of those rooms. You never know. But anyways, we'll get back at it tomorrow. We'll have some more picks to talk about, and then we'll have a surprise for you earlier in the week as well as we break down the entire overview of the full draft. And we'll have some more stuff coming over on the website too in written format. So guys, it's been a late night. Thanks for joining me once again, Brian and Zach.
Always a pleasure.
Always. It's always a pleasure to be back with both of my brothers from other mothers.
You could tell we're loopy and we'll just go absolutely crazy. But I mean, how much more can we break down 2 picks at this point? We could complain about the Ravens, like in the guys they're getting, or the Bengals actually sucked, so that's why they're going where they're going, and the Browns are going to find a way to screw it up anyway. So I'm not too concerned.
And let me just add this: can somebody get the head coach of the Browns, a real chair so he's not sitting at his desk in a kitchen chair,
dining room table,
ridiculous,
kitchen chair,
and a t-shirt and shorts too? Like you got some.
Good gosh, you're a head coach in the NFL, and you're not Bill Belichick acting like a doof. So
yeah, they made a comment about that on the TV. They made a comment about how you're the head coach of an NFL football team. Invest in a computer chair, my man. Like, it's all right.
and I do have to say this because I've said it in the back rooms three times now. Matt Rule is a fat Tyrion Lannister.
Oh, be kind. I think it's starting to the lack of sleep is starting to get to Brian. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, folks. We'll be back with even more, probably an incredibly long show tomorrow. So once again, my name's Joe. Their names are Brian and Zach. And as always, we encourage our listeners out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.